Hello, and on behalf of the Archdiocese of San Francisco, welcome to Mosaic. Now, the Archdiocese of San Francisco has a long and deep relationship with St. Francis and his followers. The various congregations of religious people that follow the way of St. Francis have many official names, but we call them familiarly the Franciscans. I said that the relationship to our city of San Francisco is long, but it's not really that long in the Franciscan scale of things. Our Archdiocese is one of his younger daughters, perhaps still in our adolescence, really. She is named after her sainted father, of course, and we all know who that is, St. Francis of Assisi. Now, the Archdiocese was created about 160 years ago. The mission church at the heart of the city was founded by Francis's followers less than 250 years ago, and all of that is recent history in the Franciscan timeline. For Francis himself was born close to 850 years ago, and for more than 8 centuries, his followers have been among the spiritual, pastoral, and even intellectual leaders of the Catholic faith and Catholic Church. And what forms has this leadership taken? In fact, the way of St. Francis is one of service, of humility, of self-sacrifice to others, and of love for all creatures and all creation. Today we will talk with Sister Ellen McCabe, one of the Sisters of St. Francis in our Archdiocese, to learn more about the Franciscan mission and charism and way of life. So please rejoin us after this brief break to meet Sister Ellen and delve into the special world of the Franciscans. Hello, and thank you for joining us on Mosaic. Our guest today is a Franciscan, and we're going to find out all about the vast universe of Franciscans and her special corner of it. Now, this is Sister Ellen McCabe.
Good morning.
Sister, thank you for joining us. And you are, tell me the full name, one of the Sisters of St. Francis of Penance and...
Christian Charity.
Penance and Christian Charity.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the vast universe of Franciscan things, but tell us about yourself. Where are you located? What do you do?
I'm in Redwood City, California. That's the province offices for St. Francis Province here in California. Our congregation is an international congregation. We have provinces in 10 countries around the world, and then each province has missions in other countries.
10 countries around the world with provinces and sisters who populate them.
Right.
Okay.
We used to have, probably in the heyday of the congregation, around 5,000 sisters.
Worldwide?
Worldwide. And now we're about 1,200.
That's pretty good numbers for the declining population of Catholic religious, it seems to me.
But the most we have are in Indonesia,
yes,
in Tanzania, and in Brazil.
Yeah.
The European provinces and the American provinces are slowly aging.
No, we understand that. It's a demographic fact that they're aging out. And then you say there were 5,000 in the heyday. When was your congregation founded?
We were founded in 1835 in a small village in southeastern Holland called Haythuizen, right along the German border. And it was right after the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes.
And Catherine Damon was a young woman in the village, didn't have much education, but was touched by God in her own space and in her own heart and wanted to serve. And so she became, there were no religious. The friars and the convents, everything had been closed during the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes, so how did she find the Franciscan way?
Well, the Capuchins came to her village.
Okay.
And she got a job there working in the sacristy, and slowly the Capuchins founded a third order section of a third order group that she belonged to. And
let's define that. A third order for one of these religious congregations is associated lay people or no?
Yes. The Franciscans have 3 orders. The first order is the friars. The second order are the poor clares. And then Francis realized toward the end of his life that there were people who were called to be Franciscan who were not free to become either a religious or because they had families.
Yes,
but they still had
couldn't
that
live
Franciscan
in
heart.
community,
Right.
because they had another obligation.
Yeah, they had other obligations, and so the lay group then was formed so that these people could come together, share their faith. They could promote works together.
Yes.
But they still had their first commitment was to their families.
And again, the founding of the first order was just after 1200. Am I wrong?
Right. 1222.
Okay.
I believe was the first rule.
And we see, it seems confusing to the layman who just looks into it, many different congregations, but we have, the original is the Order of Friars Minor, is that
Right,
right?
that's right.
OFM. Then the Poor Clares?
Then the Poor
Do they
Clares.
have a official name?
I think it's just the Poor Clares. They probably do, but
Okay.
I'm not really aware what the official title is.
And if I were a third order Franciscan, would I have some initials or titles after
Yes,
my name?
our community, we have OSF after
Okay.
our name,
OSF.
Order of St. Francis.
Wonderful. And yourself, how did you find this order as your vocation? And how long have you been in it?
Well, I hate to say this, but I've been in it for 51 years.
So, well, you joined when you were 3.
Yes, I was very young, yeah, out of diapers. But no, I went to a Catholic high school in a small town in Nebraska called O'Neill, and our sisters, the community I belonged to, our sisters were in the school there,
Yeah.
and had been since the late 1800s. And so I was attracted to their life and knew that I was called to it, and so I entered the community the year after I graduated from high school.
And was your vision that you would live in a community of sisters, or that you would carry out a certain work as your vocation? What did you see as your vocation, and what did you learn as your expertise?
What I saw then is a little different than what I see now. What I saw then was a group of educated women who were educating the young people in my town, in my area, and also ran the hospital. They were powerful women.
Yeah.
They were, like I said, well educated, and they had traveled, and there was something about them and the way that they cared for us that I knew I wanted to join them.
And when you did, what was your training? What became your expertise?
I went to college. I majored in English and became an English teacher. Got my master's from Holy Names back in '91.
Holy Names here.
Here.
So
Yeah.
you came to California.
I came to California about 1980.
Okay.
And I was teaching at Sarah High School from the fall of 1982 until 2002.
Okay.
And then I did other various works for the community through the years. The community asked me at one point to go to Germany to learn the culture and the language. Then I went as a missionary to Tanzania.
Oh, really?
For 4 different times for several months. So
Taking part in the international order.
and teaching English over there because English is the language that they need for higher education.
Exactly. And you learned some German, but you didn't become a translator of German.
No. If you want to be a translator, you have to learn from the ground up. Not when you're in your late 40s.
All right. So you're not a teacher anymore, but you're working in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. You live in Redwood City.
I live in Redwood City. I work in our internal government in the province. I'm the administrative assistant to our provincial.
Okay, great.
And yeah.
Well, let's take a break there.
Sure.
We're going to be away for a minute. We'll come back, and please learn more with Sister Ellen about the Franciscans. Hello and welcome back. I'm here with Sister Ellen McCabe. Sister, do you have initials after your name?
Yes, our community is OSF, the Order of St. Francis.
Okay, Order of St. Francis. And you live and work locally. You're part of a global or an international sisterhood with 10 provinces. But you derive your mission, your charism, your style of religion from St. Francis originally, and that was a long, long time ago. What did, I've forgotten some of my 5th grade Catholic school learning, so can you remind me about the original history of this?
Francis was the son of a wealthy merchant, and when he was growing up, it was just the time when the merchant class was becoming part of that wealthy class. There was the nobility and the clergy, and then the peasants.
Yeah.
Well, some of the peasants were moving up
Yes.
in that area, and so Francis came from a wealthy family.
Ah, okay.
And he had everything he wanted, and he was kind of a playboy.
Okay.
You know, he had a reputation in the town, and wasn't always a good one, I don't
Okay.
think. But his dream was to go to the Crusades.
Yes, right.
And so he was on his way to join them, and he was in some battles, and he got knocked off his horse, and he was held prisoner for a year in Perugia, which is just down the road from
Right.
Assisi. And he had some dreams and some visions then, but it was a very dark time for him. And when he went home, his father was not happy with him, and Francis had somehow heard that call from the Lord deep inside himself, and he realized that he was repelled by some things in society, and for him it was the lepers.
Yes, okay.
And so as he went on with his life and realized he still wanted to go off to the Crusades, but Francis had a dream in which the Lord said to him, Francis, who do you want to serve, the Lord or the Master? And well, of course he wanted to serve the Master. And so he began to think, and gradually his conversion was a slow one. And sometimes we laugh at ourselves, and sometimes we say we're Franciscans before Francis was converted, and sometimes it's after.
Ah, okay, I see.
You know, we all have to go through our own conversions. Okay. So he was praying in this little church that he rebuilt. He heard the cross say to him, Francis, rebuild my church. So he took that very literally and rebuilt the little Porziuncula.
Okay, yes.
And then he began to realize that it was more than that God was calling him to something more than just putting bricks and mortar together. And some of the other young men who he had been associated with before, who had been laughing at him because he had become this kind of outcast in another way in the village.
Yeah.
And they began to join him, and they began to form a brotherhood.
Interesting, and their brotherhood was about, it wasn't about teaching, was it
No.
about hospital work, or was
No,
it?
it was about serving those on the edges.
Okay.
The poverty-stricken, the lepers were a huge population. Well, I shouldn't say huge, but there was a large population of lepers in the Assisi Valley. And they had to ring a bell, they had to say unclean,
sure.
just like they did in the time of Jesus.
Outcasts, sure.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and so one day Francis was riding his horse, and he saw a leper. And usually when he saw a leper, he would turn and go the other direction. This time he got off his horse, and he went and he embraced the leper. And that, as Franciscans, we look at that as really the pinnacle of his conversion, when he was able to recognize Jesus in the leper.
And I think that very quickly he was called to form an order. You say men came around him in a brotherhood. And then and Claire is someone that Francis knew personally, right?
Yes, Claire was also in the small village of Assisi, the small commune. Her family was of the nobility. So Claire had a very fine education. She spoke several different languages. She had her ladies in waiting, and she saw Francis. And she saw his work with the poor. And Claire herself had done this since the time she was a little child. She would always set some of her food aside, and the servants would take it out then at night when her father wasn't looking. So Claire had that same call. But it was impossible for women to become mendicants and roam through the country doing their preaching. And so Francis made arrangements for her to stay a few nights with the Benedictines.
Okay.
And then she became like a beguine for a while before, like a hermit, until they could find a place for her. And finally they put the poor Clares down at San Damiano in Assisi.
Yes.
Outside the town.
And this is all in Francis's lifetime, a few short years.
Yeah.
We only have about another minute in this segment, but what's the magnetic attraction of these people who are doing good? Why did so many people so quickly join?
Well, the church was in a bad state, very, very much like the contemporary church. There was a lot of scandal, there was a lot of wealth in the church, and there were a lot of poor people. And Francis saw that discrepancy, and he and others wanted to change that. Monks in monasteries could not should not be acquiring all this wealth when there were people who didn't have enough to eat and children who were starving. And so his desire was to be among the people and to serve the people as best he could.
And in this, it seems like Francis and Claire and their cohort of people, they didn't leave the church, but they recognized the responsibility to, I don't know what the word
challenge.
is. Challenge.
Challenge the church, yes. Yes, Francis was very much, and that we as Franciscans today, we follow Francis, and Francis's vision was we stay in communion with the church.
Yes.
We are part of the church.
Yes.
But part of our responsibility of being part of the church is to challenge those things that are not right.
Sounds very good. We do it on the domestic level. My wife says, I'm committed to you, I'm part of the community, but I'm challenging you as well. It's part of my job.
That's right.
Let's take a break, sister.
Okay, thank
you.
you.
We'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we will talk further about the Franciscans. Hello and welcome back. We have a few more minutes to talk with Sister Ellen McCabe. She knows so much and she's done so much, but we'll squeeze a lot in. Now, Sister Helen, we wanted to ask you about projects that your congregation and your order are doing. You'd mentioned hospital work to me, and yeah, what?
We were initially founded in Holland by a peasant woman who just served the people that were in her village. And so she was teaching the children, she was visiting the sick. So we ended up as a congregation that basically promoted teaching, education, and hospital work.
Okay.
We had several hospitals in different parts of the world. We still do. Here in our province, we have one hospital that's associated with Dignity Health down in Santa Maria.
Oh yeah, okay.
And but that was what we did for the first 150 years of our life as a congregation. Now, many of our sisters are older. Many of them are retired. Those who are still working are working in parishes and working on the margins, so to speak.
Okay.
One of our sisters has gone down to the border a couple of times in July and in August, and is planning to go again to work with the immigrants there at the border. 25 years ago, we went down to Chiapas, Mexico, to a small village called Palenque.
Is that mountain territory?
It's in the mountains. It's the southernmost state of Mexico.
Right.
So there's a lot of indigenous peoples there. Really no health care available to them at all.
Right.
And so we're in the process now of building a clinic there so that the needs of the indigenous people will be taken care of, that they will have some place to go for broken bones, to deliver babies, to whatever happens to them, to get treatment.
And you've been there 25 years.
25 years.
Do all the workers there come down from the north, or do you train local?
Yeah, we have 4 sisters now down there in Chiapas who are natives there. 2 of our sisters from this province go back and forth with their work there. And one of them is a nurse, and they're training in administration so that they can get this. It's not really going to be a hospital, it's more of a clinic where they can come.
And you mentioned that the clinic comes in a box. Is that right?
Yeah, it's called a clinic in a can.
Genius of modern technology.
Yeah,
right?
it's a carrier.
What do you call it? A container from a ship.
Yeah, and they build them in Kansas, and you can have them fully equipped with whatever you want in them. So they, I can't remember what they cost. It's about a $2 million expense to get everything, and then to get the land prepared for it to sit on and all of that. Sure. So, but 2 modules will become a surgical center, and 1 module will become OBGYN, and the other module will be for emergency services.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's exciting.
Is there a way that we could contribute to this project?
Of course, yes. I'm sure that our sisters would be very happy to take contributions. I can give you our address.
Speak it now if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. We're at the Sisters of St. Francis. We're at Post Office Box 1028 in Redwood City, California, 94064.
Wonderful. Good to know.
And yeah, so it's wonderful. We need funds, and as Franciscans, we're so with begging. You know,
Okay.
it's not one of the things that we like to do, but we do it when we need to help the poor.
Sure. That's wonderful. So that's an interesting project. But you mentioned that your consecrated population is aging. Some have retired. Are you looking for vocations?
The world is changing. Women have many more opportunities. In some ways that plays into it, and in other ways it has nothing to do with it. God is still calling people to follow Him in whatever way God chooses to call them.
Yeah.
And it might not be to the kind of religious life that I've lived for the last 50 years, but there are people who are being called, and we will walk with anyone who wants to walk that journey. It really wouldn't be fair for us to take young women into a group of grandmothers and say, this is the way we live life. But if you want to come together as 2 or 3 and you want some guidance,
yes,
we are there to walk with you.
That sounds very attractive. There are lots of young people searching for some spiritual component to their lives, which they don't know quite where to find.
Right, and it's there's a group out there called Nuns and Nuns. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
It's the NUNS and
the NONES.
NONES. No,
Yeah.
I don't know about this group.
Yes, so it's the communication between them. It's forming that relationship.
Yep.
And at the bottom of our Franciscan charism, that's what relationship is. That's what the charism is all about, is relationship.
Yeah.
What is our relationship? What is my relationship to my sisters,
Yes.
to the people I work with, to the people that I serve, to the world?
Yes.
Who am I in this world, and what am I called to do? And it's nothing big. It's relating on a one-to-one basis and doing what I can.
You mentioned, that the Franciscan charism or style is to kind of be on the margins, not put yourself forward, be of aid and assistance, be consistent, be stable, somewhat be buried, be unknown. I mean, I think that's part of it.
That's kind of what it is, yeah. I mean, everybody knows about Francis, but most people, well, I shouldn't say most people because I don't really know, but a lot of people think Francis in the bird bath.
The Francis in the bird bath
and
in the garden.
the blessing of the animals on
Sure.
his feast day. But it's much more than that. It's identifying with the voiceless and the vulnerable. It's being at places like St. Anthony's Foundation.
Exactly.
In the dining room there, and on the streets with the people.
Exactly.
And being of service, the faithful fools.
The faithful fool, that's a good one. Now,
Yeah.
Sister, we only have a few seconds left, just about time enough for me to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a gift to meet you and talk with you. And again, if anybody wants to look up the Sisters
of St. Francis, Post Office Box 1028, Redwood City, California, 94064.
Wonderful. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Mosaic. And if you want to get in touch with St. Francis, Sister tells me all you need to do is to pray. He will answer, and he will hear what you're saying. Thank you very much for joining us on Mosaic.
Thank you.